and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're well. Today is a really exciting day for me actually. It came up on my Snapchat memories this morning. I say really exciting. It's a day that to me is quite important. So as I'm sat here, I've got my fire burning on the TV, I've got snow in front of me, there's a big snowstorm. Today marks 4 years since I went to the doctors for the first time to go and get help for my anxiety. So I'm just going to talk you through that journey. I'm going to talk you through my experience with struggling with my mental health whilst I was in secondary school. And yeah, this is just a bit of my experience because a lot of people don't know that I do still suffer with anxiety. So I'll take you back to 2016. So it was just before the half-term week in 2016 and my teachers were on a school trip, and so my class was put into the canteen for a lesson. There was, I think, 2 other classes in there. There was one doing an exam, there was us, the history students, and then I think there was like an English lit class as well. Because all our teachers weren't there, so there was only one supply to look after all of us. And I got there, I was running late, I was trying to print something over the break, and I got there and I felt really funny. I felt really lightheaded and I didn't really know what was going on. And it got to the point that I collapsed on the floor. I kind of passed out. And when I came round, one of the senior leadership team was shouting at me, telling me to get off the floor because she thought I was just messing. But I wasn't. I'd passed out because I was anxious or I'd had a panic attack. At the time I had no idea what was going on and it was terrifying. Yeah, so I came round and the school mentor person came and she sat with me and she took me to her office. Once I felt that I could stand up without passing out, she took me to her office and essentially kind of asked me a few questions, how I was doing, what was going on, and she essentially said that I'd had a panic attack and my adrenaline was so high because I was such a goody two-shoes in school. I hated being late, I hated letting people down, and I still do to this day, but I think being a little bit late to a lesson was a little bit of an over-exaggeration on my part, but I don't know what was going on at the time. So she took me into her office and we sat down and we chatted and I calmed down a bit. She gave me some water and she gave me some biscuits to get my blood sugars up, and I sat there and I chatted to her about how I was feeling. And yeah, the week after was half term, so I was off school and I was alright, as I was fine as I could be. And then the week after half term, so it was kind of end of October, start of November at this point, I went into school as normal and my history teacher, who was off, which is why we were in the canteen, came up to me and was like, hey, I heard that something happened in the canteen, do you want to chat about it? So I sat down with him and we chatted through, kind of similar to what I had with the learning person, the mentor counsellor, school wellbeing person, but I didn't know her, so as much as I was honest with her, I wasn't open with her. But this teacher I'd had for a year and a bit at this point and I trusted him, and so we sat down and we chatted, and that was the first time someone had asked, okay, are you actually okay? Because I was happy in school, I really enjoyed it, but at this point something had just clicked and something changed. So I sat down and I chatted with him, and yeah, I don't really know what was going on at the time. There wasn't anything drastic that had gone on in my life from what I remember. I was just getting a bit stressed with year 11 and my mock exams were coming up in the December, so a month later, and I just chatted that through with him. So later that week, so this conversation was on the Tuesday I think, and then later that week I was okay, I was in lessons, I was fine. I always got the bus to school, I always got the school bus, and it got to the point on I think the Thursday, so I'd have this conversation with my history teacher on the Tuesday, and on the Thursday I tried to get on the school bus to go home like I usually would, and I had a panic attack and I couldn't get on the bus, and that was kind of my only way home. I didn't drive. I could go and get a public bus an hour later, but that was it. But at the time I couldn't get on that bus. There was nothing in me that could get me on that bus. So I went and I sat inside school and I calmed myself down and I went and got a public bus home. I don't know what caused that panic attack still to this day. Panic attack on a bus, why not? Next day comes around, Friday, I'm okay in school again. I tried to get the bus home, as I always would. I could get the bus to school completely fine and that was great. had a fine day in school, and then tried to go home on the bus again, and I had another panic attack. I don't know what it was. I don't know. I still don't know what it is. But something in me was telling me I couldn't get on that bus. So I didn't. I did the same thing again. I got the public bus home. But because I had to wait an hour, I went back into school and just sat and chilled in the... There was some sofas at the bottom of the staircase in history, which I just went and sat at for a few hours. Well, an hour or so after school. And that was noticed. So weekend rolls around, I'm fine. Go back to school on the Monday and get on the school bus in the morning, completely fine. Same thing happens in the evening. Try to get the bus, can't. Get the public bus home instead, an hour later from the centre of town, and yeah. And then a week after I'd had this conversation with my teacher, he noticed that I'd been kind of staying back, not getting the bus home, because you realise people's routines. If you know a student, if you have a friend, if you know someone in school, you kind of know where they are at a certain time, you know their routine. And it was weird that I wasn't getting the bus home. The next day he pulled me aside and was like, hey, what's going on? Why are you still here? Essentially, not in a horrid way, but why aren't you getting home? So I explained that I had no idea. I was having panic attacks getting on the bus. And yeah, so he then told me to go to the counsellor, the same lady that had kind of picked me up when I'd collapsed in the canteen. So he booked me an appointment with her, and I went and chatted, and yeah, it was again a weird conversation because I didn't know what was causing these panic attacks. I still don't. Yeah, she'd just be there to chat to. So I scheduled an appointment with her every Wednesday for a few weeks. December rolls around and my mock exams are happening. I was actually okay. My exams were quite a nice distraction for me from whatever was going on. I had something to focus on. I wasn't just kind of doing my life willy-nilly. So my exams went okay. I was off for Christmas, and then in January I went back to school, and that's when it started to get quite bad. So I still wasn't getting the bus at this point in time. I'd usually get the public bus home. I tried, I promise you, I tried to get multiple different school buses home, but it just wasn't working. And it also got to the point that I'd started to have panic attacks in my lessons as well, which obviously when you're in your GCSE year, you want to be in your lessons. Obviously, pandemic, you can't really, but at the time I was in year 11 in 2016, 2017, and yeah, I could be in my lessons, but I would sit in my lessons and I would feel really anxious. My heart would start beating really fast. I'd start to feel really sick. I'd get really hot, but not... I'd get really clammy, but really cold. I'd start shaking. And it got to the point that in 2 lessons in particular, I couldn't stay in. I try. When you're in school, you always sit in the same seat. We had a seating plan. It was the same situation every week. And so that would trigger something in my head. Once I'd had one panic attack in that lesson, once I went into the same situation again, I'd panic. So on the 24th of January 2017, I went to the doctors and I asked for some help. I asked if there was anything that they could do. So they said, yeah, you have some options. You can either go on the waiting list for CAMS, which was a 9-month waiting list. You can take these anti-anxiety medications, which I didn't want to do because I can't swallow tablets in the first place, or you can go and get some help through school. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna go get CBT through the school, through the counsellor, and yeah. So I went back to school the next day. I don't know what day this was, but I went back to school the next day and I had my meeting with the counsellor and I said, look, I've been to the doctors and they said, can you refer me for CBT? So she did, and that was fine. Week later, I go to my meeting and there was no one there, which, I mean, fair enough if someone's busy, but I assume if you've got a meeting, you show up for it. That's always what I've thought. But yeah, I just thought, you know what, she might just be ill today, that's fine. Week later, I got a slip in the register being like, oh, this has just been rescheduled for the next week. Fine, whatever. Week later, I turn up as well. I have to leave my lessons to do this as well, and she wasn't there. So yeah, 3rd week on the run, I make another appointment for the CBT. Wednesday, same again, show up, she's not there. And that's when I almost gave up. I was like, you know what, if I'm not getting the help that I need through school, and as much as I've tried, it's not working. I'm falling through the cracks here. I'm not bad enough was my mentality. I was in the mindset of, oh, there's definitely people struggling more, so she must be helping them, so I'm not important in that sense. So yeah, I didn't book another appointment. I kept struggling in my lessons. I kept having panic attacks, and I tried to stay in my lessons more, and it got to the point that I was learning the content myself because I kind of couldn't concentrate in the lessons because I was feeling anxious and I just wanted to leave. So it got to the point that I was just sat in the history block working on stuff that I was meant to be doing in the lesson, but because it was a different situation, I was okay. By this point I could get back on the bus. I don't know what changed. I think my mindset had just changed of, okay, like what's causing this? And yeah, summer exams were all around, main GCSEs. Again, I was completely fine. It wasn't actually my exams that were stressing me out or making me anxious, because I always enjoyed school and I wasn't the smartest in the class, but I did well in my exams. I didn't have to worry too much about that. And the revision for me was a really nice distraction of, okay, you've got something to focus on. You're not having to think, oh, is this happening? Is this happening? Is this happening? I'm a chronic overthinker. I have been for years. I am getting better with it. So my exams went fine. By this point I'd also told my friends that I was struggling, because for a long time I was in denial that I was not okay. So I sent them a long message in our group chat, and honestly they were amazing. They just fully took me in with open arms and said, we're here if you need us. We hope you're okay, but we appreciate that this is difficult. Granted, 5 years on I'm actually only really friends with one of them, but I know that if I was struggling or I needed to talk to them, I still could reach out. So if you're watching, if you were part of the 6 of us friendship group when I was in year 11, I just want to thank you so much. I don't think you realise how much support you gave me. Just as a distraction more than anything. There was always something going on, and I love that. And I'm eternally grateful for everything that you helped me to do. Yeah, you gave me a reason to go to school. Like, I'm so thankful for that. Yeah, my GCSEs were okay. I did relatively well. I was quite happy with them. And then the summer rolls around. So every year with my church we do a beach mission in the Isle of Man. And by this point my anxiety was essentially getting to its worst. Yes, throughout my exams I was okay. I couldn't really go into my lessons. I was so unable to concentrate. I couldn't really focus on many things at a time. Travelling was worrying me. So we went to the Isle of Man in August of 2017, like we do most years. And we'd just been for a barbecue at a friend's house. And we were walking back down to where I was staying and I felt anxious, which again wasn't completely abnormal for me. So I went and took a walk down by the seafront and I sat down because I was feeling really lightheaded and I passed out. And that was possibly the worst panic attack I'd had in a long time, just because for most of my other panic attacks I'd feel really anxious, I'd take myself out of a situation and I'd calm down. I hadn't passed out before other than that first time, but it happened again. So I was on my own. I was in a place that, yes, I know, but I don't know many people there. I was 16, I was a young girl sat, and it was getting dark, and there was a man that ran past me when I was just sat there because I was crying, and he asked, hey, are you okay? And me, of course, the natural reaction is, yeah, I'm fine. I obviously didn't look it, but yeah. And then I passed out, and when I came round he was next to me, and there was just something about the kindness of a stranger. I'd never met this man, I still don't know who he is, but just having someone there to check that I was okay meant a lot, because he didn't have to stop, he could have done anything. I really appreciated that as well. But when I did come round, and obviously still in tears, hot sweats, cold sweats, all the jazz of a panic attack, when I came round I was greeted with the most beautiful sunset, and to me that was a reminder of, despite everything that's going on, despite you being at your absolute lowest, God is still good, he is still in control. There was a man next to me that I'd never met, but there was someone looking after me, and to me that was a huge sign of give it to God, give it to someone that can do something about it, because before I'd given it to people, I'd given my worries to people, but really they couldn't do anything about it. And I'll show you a picture of the sunset. This is what I was greeted with. This is still to this day the most beautiful sunset that I'd ever seen, and it was a beautiful reminder of wake up, realise that there is more to this world, realise that there is more to live for than feeling anxious. That was my rock bottom and the start of my recovery, I guess. I never got CBT, I never went on any medications or anything like that. I gave it to God and I asked him to help me through, and I asked him to take away my anxiety, and slowly but surely he did. Still to this day I'm so grateful for that. I would not be the person I am today, I would not be sat talking to a camera if that wasn't the case. Skipping forward a little bit, once I turned 18 I really wanted a tattoo. So Peel Beach has always been special to me. Peel Beach is the place that I got baptised. Peel Beach is the place that I've had my rock bottom. And so sometime in January in 2019 I went and I got myself a tattoo. I'll insert a picture of it here. This is when it was just done, and it's just on my wrist here. So as you might remember from the sunset picture, the castle is in the distance, and so on my wrist is the skyline of Peel Castle along with the words "Be Still." That to me summarises everything that Peel is to me. It is a place where I have been baptised, it is a place that I have shown people actually this faith is something that I am living out for. And it is also a place that I've felt my most anxious and at my rock bottom, but where I have connected with God most. What I needed in those moments was that person to say, you know what, stop and be still. The tattoo on my arm is a daily reminder of the hardship that I went through, the hardship that I'm still going through, but the goodness that God is and the goodness that God has brought to my life since and is still doing. So 4 years later, where am I now? It is the 24th of January today, and I'm still going. I'm still anxious, but nowhere near as bad as I used to be. There are things that I know trigger my anxiety. Large crowds, which is great because Corona means I can't go in any large crowds. Drunk people, because I have an irrational, huge fear of sick. I always have. If people are choking, same problem. I'm not gonna be a nurse, just saying. But yeah, today I know how to deal with my anxiety. I know when to recognise that I'm anxious. I have the people around me that support me. My family have always been so supportive once they knew. I just hope that this is almost a glimmer of light to whoever it is that needs to hear this today. It does get better. As much as it may feel like you're at your rock bottom now, there is an end to this. There is a recovery. This is not your life forever. If nothing else is working, even if you're not a Christian, please just give it to God. He can do things immeasurably more than we can imagine. I never imagined that I'd be living my life as normal as it can be. I'm so much less anxious, I'm so much more alive and more present and more happy in myself and my friends and my relationships and my family than I ever have been. Despite a pandemic, I urge you, if anything you do today, please just give your worries to God. It says in Philippians 4 verse 6, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." And I think that is exactly what I'm saying. We can't do everything on our own as much as we think we can. Yes, God puts agents in our life to help us in certain ways. Ultimately, if you don't give something to God, how can He help? So that is the end of this video. I'm sorry it's been so long and so rambly, but I hope you, I don't want to say enjoyed isn't the right word. I hope you learnt something. I hope you can hear that behind every person is a story, behind every person is something that they're struggling with. And I just really hope and I pray that this doesn't end here. that this journey of recovery, even for me, carries on. I want to get to the point, I'd love to get to the point where anxiety doesn't affect my life at all. It's got to the point that it doesn't rule my life, but it's not got yet to the point that it doesn't affect my life. And I hope that's the same for you. If you're at your rock bottom, hear me please. It does get better, and I'm a living proof of that. And that is it for this video today, guys. Thank you so much for sticking around. I hope you liked my fire. It's still snowing, and yeah, I really hope that this can reach the people that need to hear it, reach the person that needs to hear it. I will see you in my next video. Subscribe down below, like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.